All right, we are live. Let me bring up the chat. All right, cool. Let me know you all can see me and hear me okay. And while you're doing that, I will start to share my screen. Okay. So what we're going to work on today are, well, not work on, we're going to demo the new Tailwind Shifts. These will be released tomorrow. I had a need for these, as hopefully some of you saw on my goofy video I did the other day. I've been working on upgrading some old projects, not just for Laravel, but also for the fact of Tailwind. You know, I was doing things where I was throwing the new color classes and, you know, the styling just was not working, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I needed to do this on probably 5 or 6 of my own projects. So I just started building a shift, and Jess Archer has been helping me. So tomorrow, the Tailwind 1.x, Tailwind 2.x, and a Tailwind UI shift will be available. There'll be a beta release, so they'll start out at $9. And then a few of them, maybe the old Tailwind shifts, may go to $19. So I don't know. We'll see how it looks and how long the beta is. But the beta will at least be a week, even though I feel these are pretty good. So to that point, what we're going to do is BaseLaravel is actually running Tailwind, I think 1.7 or something, but not 2 is the point. So we're going to use it to upgrade BaseLaravel. Now I was actually hacking on this a little bit already. So let me go out to GitHub and let's make sure everything is closed down. So GitHub, and let's go to BaseLaravel, and let me just close any sample PRs that I've kind of already been running as just like a test, so we can all see this in action together. Now, these aren't live yet, so what I need to do is I'm going to jump over to my Mac real quick, just because I have to run this kind of like explicitly from the server. So let me do that real quick. I've got it deployed to like a single box, and I should be able to push the new changes, which will take 10 seconds or so, and then, all right, that looks good. And then I should be able to go into that specific box and rerun the one for BaseLaravel. So I want to run the Tailwind 2 shift, and against the master branch, yes, that should be good. All right, it is running in the background. Should take about 8 or 9 seconds, which is pretty sweet, by the way. Again, if you guys saw the video, there's a wonderfully detailed upgrade guide for Tailwind, but just to read that would take, you know, 15, 20 minutes just to read through all the changes. Again, this was done in 9 seconds, so already off to a good start there. Okay, so just like any other shift, you get the Tailwind 2.x shift now, of course, and from that, we can start kind of going through this. So just to kind of slow down here for a second, and again, you know, for those that are joining live, totally glad to get some of your feedback here. I have alpha tested this with maybe a half dozen people, and then of course dog fooding it myself on these projects. But it's always good to continue to get feedback. So let's just kind of go through some of the changes here, maybe some of the opinionated changes, if you will, which there's really just one, but to quickly highlight each of the changes. So of course we bumped the Tailwind dependencies, so just kind of take a look at that. If we ignore all the white space changes, basically we're going to go to Tailwind 2.0.3 and then bump up auto prefixer and post CSS as well. Now we'll get to this in a second, but notice that I am running Tailwind UI. That version is not going to be compatible with Tailwind 2, so we'll be running the Tailwind UI shift here in just a minute as well. For Laravel users out there, these Tailwind shifts are not Laravel specific. You can run any, you know, Tailwind's a front-end framework, CSS at that, so you can do this with a static site. You don't even need any other framework or backend or anything. It's completely agnostic. But if you are running Laravel, We go ahead and bump hue for Laravel Mix 6 as well, just so you don't run into any compatibility issues. It makes it nice and clean. So that's what this is here. So it looks like I was running, of course, not Mix 6. So it did that. Upgraded the Tailwind configuration file. So this is probably, a majority of what the changes are going to be. There's no more future bit, and then everything else pretty much stayed the same, again, minus some prettier formatting. And then here's the one that I kind of want to talk about, and this is listed a little bit more in the comments, but something may be opinionated that these Tailwind shifts do that would differ from the documentation, but it's in line with kind of the principle of shift, is we want you running the latest version, right? We don't want you running kind of like this hybrid new and old version, right? Like, we want it as if you had always been running that version of the framework or application or whatever at that time. And so for those reasons, we actually take the stance of upgrading your configurations, you're upgrading your colors to the new Tailwind palette. Now, this is from Tailwind 0 to Tailwind 1 is actually not advised if you read the upgrade guide. And this is really for those applications that have customized that color palette to meet their branding standards or their product standards, or even just their own custom little color palette if they want. However, I think, again, not only does this line up with shifts to upgrade the color, but also I get the sense that not everyone is using Tailwind and then kind of in that way. Like, they're not necessarily using Tailwind and then overriding all of their brand colors. And even if they are, they may not be overriding the default palette. They might be setting those as, brand color 100, brand color 200, whatever, fill in the brand, Stripe, Nike, GitHub, whatever. They might have their own color names is the point for their brand. So they're not interfering with Tailwind's color palette anyways. For those, though, that have gone in and explicitly changed gray 100 to 900 to be their own versions of gray, they might be affected by this. We'll see that here in a second. But this is probably the most opinionated thing that the Tailwind bit does, is it goes in and basically will try to line these up with the closest color as possible. Now, these aren't according to the upgrade guide. Of course, Adam and Steve have spent, a painful amount of time hand selecting these colors, which is all the more reason, in my opinion, to use what they give you, because they've kind of already thought all that out. I'm not a designer, but if your team, again, has a designer or you have brand colors to match up, this particular commit may not be something you want. So again, pretty opinionated. I'm open to kind of what you all that are joining the live stream think about that. That's going to be how the beta is released, though. There's a lot more detail in the comments. So again, let's look at that here in a second. So going through the beautiful, one more commit. Of course, Tailwind shifts all of the any kind of ring focus, shadow outline, any kind of class name or utility that's been changed is going to be picked up, of course. That's the easy stuff. Okay. So going through Tailwind 2.0 here, the bit. Let's see. Tailwind. Okay, so Tailwind 2.0 requires Node 12.13, of course, possibly. Just a little note there that you'll need to upgrade that, which I don't. I know I'm running the latest. Same thing, just check your NPM dependencies for Mix 6. That may not be something that matches up entirely. So more informative, Tailwind 2 added a new 2XL screen size. So if you're really wide breakpoints, very large screens like the iMac or whatever, if you're using container, this may be something that you care about, right? You may just want to tweak that a bit for those larger screen size. Another informative comment, theme.extends, kind of a new thing now, or not a new thing in Tailwind, it's a new thing in Tailwind 1, but this is 2.x. They were merged kind of shallowly before, so if you had a low-level object, like if you had gray and then all the 100 colors underneath it, and you had that in theme.extend, it would just overwrite every gray. But now if you do that, it'll actually merge kind of deeply or recursively from like a technical perspective. So that way, if you're just changing 100 in theme.extend, it does the right thing instead of blow away all the other grays. So that's more intuitive, pretty unlikely to affect anybody, but noting it here just in case. Okay, here's the most opinionated bit here, back to that color palette. So like we talked about, Shift is going to update your color palette to be for that latest version of Tailwind. So be it Tailwind 1.0 color palette or Tailwind 2.0 color palette, whichever one you're running, eventually Tailwind 3. So it's going to take that, it's going to closely match that up. Jess, again, did her own kind of painstaking comparison between all the colors. So, you know, we've matched these up as close as possible based on kind of this palette. Kind of eyeballing some of these and tweaking these a bit, but you know, again, respectfully with you know, the Tailwind upgrade guide, or with respect to the Tailwind upgrade guide, it's not going to be exact, just like it says in the documentation. So if you want those exact colors, what you can do is revert this commit. Everything Shift does is nice atomic commits. You can revert this commit and then configure Tailwind to use the colors that we found you're using. So we don't just dump every single old Tailwind color in there. We actually kind of went through and just demonstrate the ones that you're explicitly using that are different. And the reason we do it this way is, again, I think what a lot of people that aren't completely customizing it for their brand are going to realize is that they were probably only using 5, 6, 7 colors anyway, right? So hopefully, if they don't like the matches that we've done for them, it's going to be very easy to say, oh, you know what, those 3 teal colors, I'm just going to go look and do a search in my code base and see how those are being changed. So I think it's a good opportunity here to kind of relay what's being used, give them a config that they can just dump right into theme.extend, copy paste, boom. If you want the old colors, you're done. Don't have to do anything else. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. But hopefully what I believe is that people will see this, and even if they are a little jarred by moving those colors, they'll see that they probably weren't using that many anyway, and they might be able to select those from the new color palette, and again, stay on that latest version of Tailwind. JMac, your shirt has a psychedelic shine. Yes! There's a white balance meter on the camera, and when the white balance has like interference, let's call it, it actually creates little marquee kind of lines, and that's what you're seeing. It's very strange because none of the other camera settings that are built into their display get fed through, but for whatever reason, when I broadcast, it picks that up. So I need to turn it off. I meant to turn it off the other day, but I forgot. So that's probably what you're seeing on my shirt. It's actually not the shirt. This is just a white cotton, sweatshirt. And it's, yeah, you're getting that from the camera. So sorry about that. Hopefully it's not too distracting. Again, just some more informative comments here. The add-apply does kind of what you could argue to be a more correct more correct order now. So if you're doing things that, it's actually the same as the HTML order, whereas before it was kind of the order that you listed them, which didn't always really apply the styles correctly, or arguably didn't apply them correctly. And then finally, the line height changed a bit, and then that last little note that we knew was coming, it detected that we're using Tailwind UI 1.x, and so it's saying, hey, you can run the Tailwind UI shift, or of course, go check out the upgrade guide for Tailwind 2.0, or sorry, Tailwind UI 2.0, and implement these changes yourself if you want. But of course, we're not going to do that. So what I am going to do, so we can get into the code and see what this all looks like, is I'm going to go back to the laptop real quick. I'm going to run the Tailwind UI shift against this branch. So we'll see a PR and have that work compounded. And hopefully I can go to the command line now and start running npm update, and we'll kind of see what this looks like. In the meantime, let me know what you think about the defaulting of colors or the updating of colors to the new palette. I definitely am interested in your opinions on those. So back to the server, Tailwind. It's going to go into the Tailwind Shift UI branch. Let's see what this looks like. Hopefully I don't have any branch conflicts. I do. Let me clean that up real quick. Let's close down a bunch of this junk too. Oops. Not that far. Looks like I left one of these old branches open. Comments are in the way. Delete. All right, back to there. Back to the comments. All right, let's run that one more time. It's running. Go to the PRs. All right, that ran in about 7 seconds. Tailwind UI shift. Okay, so this one's going to be a little less involved. It basically just has a few tiny things. Honestly, I'm not using, let's just take a look at the site. We're going to want to anyway. I'm not using much of Tailwind UI here. I had picked it up for Laravel Shift anyway. So the only thing I think I use it for here is just this pricing section. So there's not going to be a lot of changes in this necessarily, but I just felt it was nice and comprehensive to have, again, the full path. I don't expect a lot of people are still running Tailwind 0 sites, and I don't expect a whole lot of people necessarily have Tailwind UI version 1 either, maybe, right? Maybe they do. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I thought it was cool. If I'm going to do the Tailwind shifts, I want them to be like all-encompassing from the beginning. I think Tailwind's going to continue to grow, so I think it'd be nice to just have those shifts going all the way back. You know, it'd be like if the Laravel shifts went all the way back to, 1.0, which I don't know who was using it back then, but the point is, I think it's cool to kind of get in at ground zero, so to speak. Okay, so just reviewing these real fast. Two things, of course, bumped the configuration and the dependencies in the npm package JSON file, and then it's going to tweak some things as well, those colors and transitions. Tailwind actually removed them. You'll see it listed in the upgrade guide. Again, just to have that fidelity between version 1 and version 2, you don't want to go copying, pasting in one of these pricing sections, and suddenly that one doesn't have transitions and the old one does. It's going to create an inconsistency on your site. So again, it does some opinionated things like remove them to try to make those elements match up the same, but it doesn't necessarily go in and like change out the entire markup. I'm going to do some comparisons on the HTML that you copy from Tailwind UI to see how much markup actually changed. Just spot checking it, it doesn't look like a whole lot did. So again, just removing these is going to get that visual fidelity pretty close. Again, it's beta release, so I'll learn areas that aren't as more people use this and continue to tweak that. So not too much to see here, just some notes about that. So let's do this. Let's get fetch origin. And I'm going to assume from everyone's silence that either you can't hear me anymore for some reason, or everyone thinks the color update thing's totally fine, which is good. So let's check out that 42142. All right, and I don't know a better way to ensure that I'm getting the latest, or let's go into site actually, because I have a couple other things with BaseLaravel like the actual book and so forth all in this mono repo. So let's take away, anytime I've ever run like npm update, it doesn't really do kind of like what I would expect. Like, when you run composer update, it's going to check and bump all your, dependencies, right? Regardless of what's in the log file. That doesn't seem to be the case when I run npm update, and then when I run npm install, it doesn't necessarily pick up new things either. So this is kind of the way in which I clean up and update npm. So again, hopefully that's, I don't know, if anyone knows the correct way to update npm packages and make sure that it not only updates your existing ones, but rereads your package JSON file to pick up any new ones, let me know. So this is the way I do it. Pretty ugly. While that's running and hopefully installing, let's go back and bring up BaseLaravel.com. So I'm going to close these down because I'm not really going to worry about merging them today. What I want to do is really just kind of get a side-by-side comparison, and let's just kind of see how this all ends up looking. So I've got this brought up here. Let's go ahead and first of all, I want to bring up the Tailwind config file, and let's just take a second to kind of format that. Two quick things I want to point out. Even though Tailwind Shift kind of updates your colors, right, to the new color palette, it does that intelligently. So these are being chosen based on what your previous colors were. So there's a lot of different grays that you can actually configure now. You can configure like blue gray or custom gray or whatever the other ones were. Same with green, teal. Blue can be, you know, dark blue, light blue, different types of colors is the point. It actually does that configuration. And then the other thing to note is I did have the Laravel brand color. Speaking of brand colors, this existed already, and you know, Shift of course preserved that. So for those reasons, not only the naming that I had, but also again that Tailwind kind of new color palette, and then selectively choosing those based on closest match, I do expect the colors to be pretty darn close. Now again, this isn't going to be close enough for, you know, a designer or a marketing brand team, but I think it's going to be close enough for most people. So it looks like npm ran had some audit issues, but that seems to always be the case. And then let's run npm run dev. I'm not using the new cool Tailwind JIT, so this is going to build like a 12 meg file. Oh, looks like we have an issue here. Cannot find module Tailwind UI. Okay, who's trying to load Tailwind UI anymore? Let's take a look at that. Maybe I missed something in the update. Let's find all files. Plugins require Tailwind UI. Am I on the right branch? That's very strange. I thought we cleaned that up if I remember looking right. Let's go back to GitHub and BaseLaravel. Maybe I just didn't check out the right branch. Tailwind UI. No, that's the right branch. Bump the dependencies. It seems like it's missing a config change that should exist here. There's a configuration change in that I know is coded, but for some reason it's missing. So I'm gonna do this by hand. This should not be require UI anymore. It should be kind of these additional things. So it should be like forms, typography, yeah, and then aspect ratio are the new ones. So let's rerun this. And again, Tailwind Shift does that, so it's very weird that I didn't get that commit. I'll look at that after the fact. Uh-oh, I think Izzy might have woken up. Yeah, I think she's awake. Not good. All right, well, let's try to finish this out real quick. Okay, everything built, that's good. And then I'm also gonna need to bring up Docker. All right, so I'll make sure that gets pulled in. And while Docker's coming up, let's just kind of get this ready to look at side by side. It's gonna be a little hard with, get out of my way, Docker. It's gonna be a little hard on the higher res screen for the screen share, but we'll see what it looks like. Let's hide that. And I want to bring up another tab. I have like a Spaces app, but I always forget to turn it on. I think it conflicts with like another app when it boots, so I like removed it from the boot bit. But anyways, BaseLaravel.whip. Let's give this just a second. And let's hope I have this. Docker's still loading. Come on, Docker, you can do it. All right, supposedly it's running now. Didn't send any data. Okay, let me make sure I've got things set up appropriately for Docker on here, and if not, we'll do an old PHP artisan serve. But I probably just don't have this configured for Docker just yet. No, it looks right. That should be good. Whip, yeah, that seems good. What else is missing in there? That should be all good. All right, let's try one more time. I was thinking about it. Again, that 12 meg Tailwind file is not helping anything, but let's give it just another second. I can't tell if it's going to load or not. While we're doing that, let me go to my local Apache. Oh wait, workspace, cd local Docker stack, cd Apache, grep BaseLaravel.com out of vhosts. Yeah, it's in there. Come on. Well, we'll try artisan serve if not. The problem with artisan serve is the products, it's not going to hit the database. It's not going to hit the database the way I want. That's kind of annoying. Are my other stacks running? Let's look at Laravel shift.whip. It almost seems like nothing is running. Good old Docker. It's running really slow is what it's doing. Okay, so things are running. LAMP's running, MySQL's running. Okay, so it is. It's just a matter of it's not wanting to load this page for some reason. And I'm not even getting an error. Let's check the error logs. Maybe something is getting output. Let's get rid of that. It's thinking about it. Valet Docker? No, I haven't. Yeah, I know there's some cooler stuff out. I know Titan. What did they release a couple months back? I've had like this same stack for quite a while, so I just kind of run with it. But the problem is I do a lot of work on I do most of my work, to be honest, on my laptop, on the MacBook Pro. So not all of my sites are set up on the iMac. So something like I don't use a lot, like BaseLaravel, you know, once it launched. Takeout from Titan is the name of their tidbit. I never used Valet because I always, again, I ran things locally or with this container. So, all right, we need to figure out how we can actually look at this. I'm gonna try, yeah, Sail's another one. Sail's great. I used that on a quick project the other day, and it was very helpful. Let's try PHP artisan serve, and let's just, maybe we're lucky. Purpose, closure command purpose doesn't exist. Composer update. Composer update. Maybe we're dealing with a lot of different issues here. Maybe everything needs to be updated. All right, there we go. We'll try artisan serve. Maybe we'll get lucky and it doesn't need the database for the home page. Just so we can at least kind of see these side by side and I can finish talking about the colors. But it might have been, oh yeah, there we go. It might have just been this too. Now it's actually loading. So it may have just been a weird composer needing a composer update. Which is strange because I would have expected, you know, some kind of error, but maybe it was so deep that it just did not work out. There we go. That seems a little better. I'm going to switch back to just me. Hello. I need to build this database, and I think that the login, or like, I've got like some handy scripts in like a notepad file, or notes, Apple Note, but last time I did it, I scrolled past some sensitive information. So let's watch me for a second. Glad we're going to be able to get this going now. All right, let me build this. And this is BaseLaravel dev go. All right, that should be that. And then let me close down notes so I don't pop past it. And there's the screen again. All right. And if we go into Docker, we can now run migrate fresh seed, and I think we're going to be in business. So all of that was unfortunately my setup related, but hey, we're doing it live, right? So PHP artisan migrate fresh -- seed. I need to get that mfs command running, or alias. All right, cool. So let's refresh. Should be in a better place now. Sweet. All right, cool. So right away, kind of looking at stuff, I don't see anything like glaringly broken. It does look like, as noted in the PR, I do see some line height changes. Like for example, this logo here actually looks a wee bit larger. We can actually see side by side there. If we look, it is actually just a bit larger right there. And we can even see how, for example, the text is breaking at different spots. So craft over here is on the second line, and it's not there. So same thing. The rest of it actually, looks pretty close, but again, I can see line break issues. So unless we're just at a very, very close breakpoint, I would say that's that line height that was noted in the PR. For me personally, this is probably a non-issue, right? It's not something I would probably worry about changing. But again, if you have a very, very specific site, very specific brand, that's why these types of things are called out in the bit. So yeah, exactly. Some of the line height is a little bit off based on what we're talking about. Okay, so yeah, to the point of the bit there, we can also see in the comments, as noted, that this gray is definitely what I would consider a darker gray or a richer gray, and we've kind of adopted that blue gray. So again, this might be one of those things that you want to tweak as well. Now, of course, the Laravel brand red is totally fine because we have been using that all along. So as far as the BG color, we see a little bit lighter here. This background is actually probably BG 100 that got moved to BG Gray 50, the new 50 lightnesses. Again, those grays much lighter here. We can see in the testimonial. But for the most part, again, I'm probably okay with that. In fact, I kind of like this lighter gray testimonial. It feels softer. Maybe not so much on that login button, but again, these are choices you're going to have to make regardless of if you use Tailwind. Regardless of if you use Shift or not. Like when you upgrade, do you want to adopt the new gray 50? Maybe you like that it's lighter. Maybe you were already using a custom gray 50, right? So these are just choices you'll have to make as you go through. I actually like that lighter gray. So, but yeah, just scrolling through the rest. Let's get down to this pricing section because it was definitely affected by, it had some Tailwind UI stuff. So we can see here, same thing. It's actually looking pretty good as far as, rollovers and everything. That gray, of course, is still lighter, but I like the indigo and teals that are on there. It all looks good to me. So again, definitely a different color. I want to acknowledge that. Now, I would say this discount section probably needs some love. You could definitely see that there was a difference in those background colors before, and now we have no contrast between them because they're both that new gray 50. But moving along, yeah, I mean, this looks pretty good. Yeah, a bit darker over here. That's actually an issue on both sides, this breakpoint. That should probably center or something. So opportunities to clean things up myself. Actually, that was kind of, a little broken from before. But I would say all in all, that's pretty good. I mean, again, these color changes as noted and as warned in the PR are definitely going to be the thing you want to pay most attention to. If these were just glaringly broken to you or unacceptable, revert that atomic commit, copy in that config, and you're going to be 100% your old colors right away. So totally easy thing to do there. And I would say if Izzy wasn't crying in the background and I needed to help my wife, I would probably try to do that real quick, just to demo reverting it. But I'll probably need to jump off here. Normally she sleeps for an hour, but it sounds like she only made it about 40 minutes. So let's just end by going back to that PR. So basically what I would do here is I would probably go ahead and actually I would merge this. I didn't see anything glaring with the Tailwind UI shift. So I'm going to merge this into the Tailwind 2.x shift, delete that branch just for some cleanup. And then what I would do is probably, as usual with any other shift, I would probably go through this a little more closely and just kind of, weed through these notes. I don't think anything's wrong there with that large screen size. Totally fine with me. I wasn't really merging anything with theme extends other than that Laravel. But I do want to go in and look at these colors a bit more closely. Maybe those grays just are unacceptable. So maybe just the grays I might want to change and use differently. But the reds and the blues and definitely the indigos and teals that came across do not bother me at all. But I may end up customizing those grays. So I'll tweak that. Again, it's nice and easy listed in the comments here. And that's why we check, right? So I wasn't using that many add apply rules, so I'm okay with that. And again, this line height thing here, again, may just want to slow down and check that out. So we already did the Tailwind UI. I can delete that. And hey, I didn't find anything that was really wrong here. So I'm going to focus on these 2 comments and push this live later today, and I'll tweet about it when I do. So thanks everyone for joining live on that short little live stream. I'm going to make some fun demo videos of the actual Tailwind 1.x, 2.x, and UI shifts here pretty soon. But thanks for joining me live. Hope you all can check out the new beta shifts or beta versions of these tomorrow. I'll be releasing them in the morning, Eastern time. So yeah, check them out. Let me know what you think. See y'all.